from Soul and them just playing through the Caitlyn. Very, very good performance overall for the team. But Renata, especially, I am excited to see how this handled. You know, you do mention how CJ brought on a couple of new picks. And I do want to talk about this misfortune a little bit because we've seen the Xayah pop up recently.
Yeah.
You get that tier coming in with the Manamune. You get the Eclipse as well as your Sorolda's Grudge. Very big 2 to 3 item spike. Misfortune replicates this, but instead of the amount of ridiculous peel that Xayah has and the counter engage options, well, Misfortune instead has bullet time, which is probably it's the classic team fighting AoE tool from an AD carry, and it's going to be really eyes are on him to find the right timings to use this ultimate to affect some of these team fights, because if it's pulled off correctly, I think we're seeing a few key CC tools come out from Rascal Jesters. By and large, if we see Pillar down, if Recap isn't in position to scatter the weak, or that Renata ulti isn't available, it's really hard for Rascal Jesters to interrupt that.
So, Oak.
Here we are.
I kind of want to postulate something.
Okay.
So, last summer,
Mm-hmm.
CJ's AD carry was a gentleman called Milan.
Right.
And you've heard stories about Milan. Long-time viewers of the broadcast will recognise the name Milan. Not a particularly potent player in the early game. Laning phase not particularly strong, but his team fighting was actually half decent. One of his key picks was this Misfortune, a champion whose laning phase is quite strong just by itself.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you get a little bit of itemization on her, can scale quite well into these team fights. I wonder if what CGA are saying here, they're flipping the script and they're going, actually, we're going to play a bit more towards top lane. We're going to play a bit more towards mid lane. And maybe that's the adaptation that they feel like they needed to do to come out on top of this matchup.
I mean, especially when you consider that Kassin and Nap are on these reversed meta picks. So the Graves is coming for Kassin, which you've already said, standard performance. But the volley bet on Nap as well. Something definitely more early game skewed. A lot of early game dueling power, especially in these extended trades. If you compare that in time with the Kassin, we see him do this top side start, but there are still opportunities for him to path towards there. As mentioned, I could definitely see Kassin maybe looking towards this top side. However, one of the big pressures of this Caitlyn lane is its ability to repeatedly shove, get hybrid under turret, and try and force CS deficit. This does present an opportunity for CJ to look towards the spot lane. However, I think you'd already noted, and I do see it here, CJ are lacking a lot of consistent CC. I think across the board, Rise and Volley Bar are really the only key facilities of it. So I'm wondering if Kassin is really going to have that much influence over these lanes pre-6 at all.
Yeah, I think once you get that level 6 mark, obviously you get the encore with the bullet time combo on that bot lane. I think you are a lot more set up for success there as well, with the Realm Warp that can come down from mid lane with Kaito. So I agree with you, but yeah, that early game is going to be pretty rough for CGA if they're not able to get as much pressure down as you wanted. And we're already seeing that. Soul and Secret constantly throwing these waves towards CGA's tower. Kassin in this bot side is actually taking a whole heap of damage and is forced to flash back away. That's the early power of this duo.
And this means that Kassin has to give up first scuttle and bot side. And if Hachimecha's smart about this, he can move straight back up to this top side and take away the second scuttle as well, which is kind of what we expected from this pick. Trundle notoriously strong in the early game, very good duelist. So he's really going to be trying to take best advantage of this early state, especially with a Syndra in the mid lane as well, which is something we only briefly touched on. But this is a brand new pick coming in for Recap, and definitely not something we thought we'd see him leaning into.
Yeah, it feels a bit more early game oriented than a lot of his pulls. Stuff like Veigar and Ahri, like it can get stuff down. It has a little bit of that pick CC, but it's not the sort of champion that can just like one combo someone at level 9, which is what the Syndra offers.
Absolutely, and I'm hoping that we see Recap and Hachimecha on point with each other to really try and take advantage of this, because when it's been in the hands of Kaito, I'm not going to lie, something has been left to be desired. I really feel like CJ's biggest downfall has been repeatedly putting Kaito on this Syndra and then not playing through it. And you see that reflected in some of the damage numbers. Kaito, generally low DPM, generally low access to gold as well, because they're funneling all of that into hybrid, and I think it really hurts his Syndra. Maybe Rascal Jesters have a little bit more space to reorientate themselves around the mid lane, especially within the first 9 levels of the game, to get some focus on the Syndra, and then they can spread that gold into the rest of the map.
Well, I think if we want to sort of bring up the graphic that we've got, I think we can talk about that conversation transitioning down towards this bot side of the map. As Secret is going to land a pull onto Hybrid. The trap not going to land, though, as Soul is also rooted up. And CJ actually sort of giving as good as he got. But this is, I feel like, kind of what you were alluding to there, right?
Yeah, so Soul and Hybrid. This is a matchup. Okay, I just want to say, I rated Soul #1 AD, and this is the reason why. Look at that DPM, and this is in tangent with the rest of the stats. You can see that Hybrid, huge gold per minute, 2nd overall in the league, whereas Soul is sitting at 5th. In return, though, Soul manages to pump out a very high damage per minute, and this is with the Senate games. Is this with the Senate games excluded?
This is
or
with the Senate games, yeah.
There you go. This is with the Senate games included as well. This team, I mean, you can see CJ put a lot of time and gold into Hybrid. The CS numbers as well for Hybrid speak for themselves. But even through that, Soul pumps out more for his team. And I think this is something that I really love these kinds of stats, because it really shows how Soul, a very tenured AD carry in the league, how he manages to provide for his team.
Well, and the thing is as well, like we're talking about Hybrid being a bit lower down. 585 DPM is not a
it's
small
still
number.
very good.
That is still a very, very large number. And if any AD carry is doing that amount of damage on my team, I am very, very happy with them. But Soul has just been that level above at points this split. 6 minutes into the game, so Drake is on the Rift, and Kassin looking to take a back here. Rascal Jester moving up, can secure this one fairly early.
Very cheeky. Pillar comes in, and I think, to be honest, I'm hoping Rascal Jester take the initiative, get these waves shoved in, and look for this first rate, because it's really what this comp is about. When you have the Syndrome, that unleashed power, such a big level 6 tool, and when you don't combine it with a very heavy ganking jungler, instead you need to make sure it gets usage as a pressure tool across the map. So you see now they get this shove in the mid side, as well as Soul moving down. It means that they're looking towards this first Drake.
Yeah, and it's a little bit of sort of proactivity in the early game from Rascal Jester, not something that we've characterize them as. We've not talked about them as being an early game team, but they're quite good at doing stuff like this, just pressuring people away, gaining objectives without necessarily needing to fight.
And they've been very happy to use Soul and Secret's lane priority to get advantage state for these first straights. It's something we've seen repeatedly, even through their lack of early game focus overall. So
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I had not read that tweet from Hatchemetcha. My sister told me that I got disqualified from the match. It was that is. I'm not gonna lie. Hatchemetcha, you're getting on a bit, but you're only 29. You shouldn't be going senile just yet.
He's 29?
He's 29. He's 29. We've got some experienced players in the LJL. Like talking about how he was one of the 2 players that were actually a part of the last time these 2 teams met in that best of 5 back in 2020. As we could be seeing some action here in the bot lane. Nemo comboed up and just taken down so easily. First blood of playoffs goes to recap.
And this is, we mentioned it already, this is something we wanted to see. Now, CJ immediately go for the response, but a fantastic early punish on this bot side. And the priority we wanted to see from this Syndra, something we love to see. Unleashed power combined with a Scatter the Weak to pick up that first blood as well. And going on to the Syndra as well, which means that tier start doesn't really mean too much overall.
Oh my God. There's a fair bit of damage down from a Hybrid onto Soul. It was very confident that bullet time was not going to take him out, still holding on to that flash.
So it doesn't have to burn the flash after that bullet time, but it does put him in a bit of a scary position, especially as Hatchemetcha's Fizz looking
to the flash forward. Oh! So that's why you pop. The Potman survives on single-digit HP.
He's been very, very naughty boy there. Shouldn't be staying in lane, especially with this wave now slow pushing in. It means that Hatchemetcha's forced the path down towards his bot side just to ensure some safety for this lane now. A little bit unfortunate, but only someone is traded, which is probably a net win for Rascal Jester. So he does have access to that net as well. So a little bit more mobility on the side of the Caitlyn.
And I mean, you just look at the sort of raw numbers as well. Not only has Soul taken a couple of those tower plates, the CS difference is pretty substantial as well. So even if the 1v1s look close, as we get later into the game, as we get more itemization down onto these AD carries, feels like it's going to be Soul coming out on top.
And look at this repeatedly. Hatchemetcha's just been pumping time into this bot side. It's something that we see him do a lot. He prefers this kind of jungle style where he remains relatively close to his laners to ensure that they have the stability within their lanes to repeatedly get these wave shoves to look for picks if they want to, but not to really just to be there to counteract any aggression from Kassin. And it's something that I love to see him on, especially something like this Trundle, which performs so well in that role.
Yeah, it's a really big counter-ganking champion, but unfortunately doesn't clear the jungle quite as quickly. We're starting to see Kassin build up an advantage. I don't know what the Observer's doing. Kind of just
showing us that there's a stopwatch almost online for the Rise, I think.
Ah, so recap maybe caught out here. Kassin goes over the wall, and that is an instant flash. You just need to do that. The Realm Warp is going to follow forward as Kaito not quite going to connect with a Rune Prison, and Hachimecha not in range to pressurize the mid-jungle duo from CJ. That's a stun, but it's not going to be too much more.
Absolutely. I mean, Hachimecha does show, though, and the pillar comes out with the Caitlyn ulti.
Yeah, he's forced to ult back there, and will get that dash away. Subjugate traded as well, though, so both junglers using their ultimates, but not able to get too much more than that.
And even with this, Rascal Jester, even with having to play on the back foot, they immediately take control of the game again and use these ultimates to try and take an aggressive stance. And because of that, it means that Kassin's trying to see whatever spacing he can get on the map, and in turn blows that Herald early just to get a bit of play gold on him and Kaito.
Yeah, and this is the weird thing. We said that maybe CGA would not play towards this bot lane as much, try and treat it as sort of a self-sufficient entity. And whilst Kassin has not been the most active on the map, he definitely hasn't been looking bot lane. Hachimecha throws up the frozen domain, and we could be in for dive number 2, Electric Boogaloo. But they don't want to go for it. Not quite enough damage yet.
You just got... It's unfortunate. It's always nice to see. It's such an aggressive stance from Hachimecha as well. He's just like, nah, I'm actually opting out of this. Sorry. But you mentioned this, and I want to cover this briefly, because Kassin definitely had some early game access. We talked about limitations in the bot side, especially pre-6, but Nap in the top side has been repeatedly shoved in by Ino, and this is how this lane has remained relatively neutral. Ino has just shoved waves, always had minion advantage, so Naps really hasn't been able to interact with him too much, especially when that rage bar is full. That could have been the lane to gank, but instead Kassin has had to match Hachimecha within this bot side with that pressure, and in turn it's meant that it seems like Ino's by and large, at least so far, gotten away with this laning phase.
Yeah, even on CS with a Volibear is pretty good. I know the champion not really played in that top lane too much anymore, but
I'm seeing. We'll see if the fight starts. Looks like Hachimecha is just going to walk out from this as Kaito's walking down, but I'm seeing a certain wand on the side of Nap there on the
That is a blasting wand.
It is a blasting wand, so maybe we'll be seeing an AP build opted towards
the Wizard Bear, perhaps.
The Wizard Bear. He has a magical hat.
I love that if like buying a Rabadons or something would actually give your character a hat. I feel like that would encourage
what
AP
game
builds and
do they
boosters a
do
lot
that
more.
in? There's a game that they... Oh yes, Risk of Rain. Have you ever played Risk of Rain 2?
I have not. I have not.
It's like it's a roguelike, but every item you get, it adds it to your character. We see the fight starts.
Yeah, Risk of Rain, risk of a fight. Encore only lands onto Solo, who is able to flash away, and that hostile takeover is absolutely brilliant. First kill of the fight for recap. Second kill for Ino as Kassin is going to drop down and Kaito forced to flash away. It's not been the most active early game, but Rascal Jesters are winning it out, and they're going to claim their second Drake.
And off the back of Ino repeatedly shoving in this waves, he finds time to move down to the spot side and guarantee a successful fight. Combine that with, as you mentioned, a fantastic hostile takeover from Seeker, as we saw that Encore miss just a little bit, only really hitting one target, and it meant that the counter engage from Rascal Jester was so strong. They get 2 kills, they get the Drake, and get 4 plates going over as well to Soul, who, once again, this Caitlyn Renata lane, really doing well.
It's impressive stuff, and while CJ haven't sort of had the help that they would have liked, it's just, again, that demonstration of how good Soul and Secret are as a duo. We're going to jump into that replay around that Hextech Drake fight.
Yeah, and you can see that Nema, he's so close to landing this ulti. He sees the pillar, knows he's in threat, but Hachimecha plays it so smart and so slowly. Combine that with the flank from Ino. Look at him on this side here. He splits up CGA completely, and then, well, I mean, the rest of the team just get to play how they want to play. Each gets their own role, really.
It's wonderful stuff, and we start to see a little bit of the aggressive summoner spell setup from Ino come to fruition there, going for the Ghost Ignite, just the pure Chad 1v1 summoner spells. I'm going to jump into your backline, and I'm going to kill someone.
Absolutely, and also pairs really well with the Volibear as well. Something we see often with the Tryndamere is that when he does opt into the Ghost, the enemy laner normally has to opt into the Ghost in tandem, because otherwise you end up with situations where you get run down. interesting to see Nap hasn't done this. He's also opted into that TP as well. So he's very much focused on getting to his first item and then just holding off in the sideline until he finds a TP. I know he's aggressing onto Kassin, but Kaito has the first move.
Smite goes down. Rift Herald is going to be taken out, but not going to be secured just yet. They can't get in onto the thing. Ultimate there from Ino as he's buying time, but the brawl is beginning. Kaito is going to trade a kill back first of the game for CGA as Nap is forced to ult away, but the Stormbringer is not going to save your life. Hatchemetcha now chasing down Kaito, who has no flash, no stun though, and he's able to walk it away. There's not going to be any follow-up from other CGA members as Secret and Soul are pushing in this mid lane. It was a fairly even fight, but it's still Rascal Jester coming out on top.
Absolutely, and it's also an exchange of powers now immediately afterwards. We see Rascal Jester. Now, Hybrid stayed in the bot side to make sure he's in a kind of a safety net, catch this way, but in return, this means that Rascal Jester's alongside with those 2 kills, they pick up the first turret in mid lane as well. We get to see the replay here. Now, key things to look out for is, even through this, CJ had first rotate. They had Kaito on the side and Nap as well. Hatchemetcha and Recap did a fantastic job of neutralizing Kaito, and it means that even with this Undying Rage coming in super early, they still pick off Kassin, and this ultimately leads to that. And then on top of that, I think Nap, this blasting one may not have been the best pickup for you, buddy, because absolutely blown up by the Unleashed power.
Yeah, that Volibear is definitely not a tank at the moment. It looks like he's going towards the Riftmaker, which, I mean, we've seen on AP top lane Volibear before, but I feel like maybe off meta for a reason. One thing I do just want to briefly highlight in that fight was Hatchemetcha's pillar meant that Kassin couldn't pick up that Herald. So all that time invested in this top side from CGA, ultimately not really getting them anything.
Incredible. I didn't even notice that. Incredible pillar coming up from Hatchemetcha. Now, I know playing, maybe seeing Kaito and Kassin. Yeah, it's just a little bit of a start for Crest. They really want to unlock some of these turrets in return now, because we're seeing that gold lead for Rascal Jester. 3k now, only 17 minutes in the game. And I think CJ kind of understand that and realize, okay, we need to start using the ebb and flow of power to maybe get stuff on the other side of the map.
But, Oak, how many times have you said that? 3k gold lead for Rascal Jester at 17 minutes. This isn't an early game team. This isn't a team that gets their advantages before the 20-minute mark. It's about like winning lanes, having sort of like 10, 15, 20 CS here or there. And then once you get to that 20-minute mark, when objectives start to become a bit more pivotal, that's where we see Rascal Jester's good fight setups, and that's where we see them get their advantages. That's not what's happened this game. It has been all go right from the get-go.
Now, there are a couple of key things to counteract with that. Now, number one, Recap isn't on your more traditional supportive style pick. We've seen the Ahri be prevalent for him, the Veigar too. Now, these work very well off either individual picks or just being that reliable CC tool for your team. The Syndra definitely offers that, but very much more skewed towards winning laning phase, and has done so successfully, I'd like to know. This is in tandem with the Caitlyn, which is also very lane focused and notoriously dips in the mid game. The fight starts.
Hatchemetcha potentially caught out here. Hostile takeover only lands onto Nema though. Seraphine doesn't do too much damage with those auto attacks, and it's a lot invested by Rascal Jester, but they haven't really been able to get out of the fight. The Encore goes wide. Such a huge ultimate not being effective, and that means that Ino is able to take out Nap at the beginning of the fight. Scatter the week is massive. Recap, it's your first Syndra game of the split, but that looks like you've been maining this champion for years.
Oh my god, a fantastic play, and this should lead up to pick up this turret T2 as well. Secret flashes forward. You're seeing the aggression come out from Rascal Jester. It seems like they may have read our notes beforehand, because they really wanted to take this early game by storm, and are doing so fantastically. 4 kills. They almost get that tier 2 in the mid lane, as well as picking up that third Drake on a 19-minute timer. They are right on point to look towards this early soul, and I mean, you can see how aggressively this starts the map. I want you to keep your eyes on Soul throughout this fight, because even though he doesn't see this flank coming in from Nap, he's still playing so aggressively here, pumping out DPM, and this is what we know him so well for.
It was absolutely fantastic, and I felt like that RJ have flubbed the engage a little bit, but that Encore just going millimeters wide means that you're not getting that lockdown onto those priority targets of Ino and of Solan. The rest of the fight becomes so easy to clean up, and that was absolutely beautiful from Recap. He played a bunch of the Syndra last year, and you could see that he's not feeling rusty on it at all.
And this is why I was a little bit critical of RMC when he was talking about Recap not deserving of the spot because, especially on the Vega, and the Ari as well, has had immaculate team fighting, and I think we're really seeing that show presence in this game too. Throughout the split, he's done a fantastic performance post 15, as most members of Rascal Jester have. It's their playstyle, and it just continues here. And I think it's really highlighted that when you combine that with his rotates in the early game, he knew that he's opting towards a more aggressive pick within the first 15 minutes of the game. He played well with that, and then we still see him hit mid-game, hit these skirmishes and these team fights, and perform fantastic.
And if this is something that RJ can replicate in the rest of this series, and if they're able to land the victory in this series into the rest of playoffs, it looks damn scary, because this game has emphatically not been about Soul. It's not been about Secret. It's been about these solo lanes securing these advantages. And one of the things that we have criticized some of our sort of second, third place teams, I think this is something that we lay at Sengoku's door, potentially a little bit less, is just where are those extra carries? DFM always feel like a team at the top of the table where the lead can go anywhere and you're going to do good things with it. Maybe we're starting to see Rascal Jester turn into that sort of team, and that definitely makes later playoff games look a little bit more interesting. But the here and now is where we need to keep our focus. It's 21 minutes into the game. Baron is live. Rascal Jester are sieging on the mid lane.
Yeah, 2 items on Caitlyn now, a notorious low point for this champion, but still, combine that with that the amount of gold this team has, it means they're looking towards this tier 2. The siege comp really comes online with this Caitlyn at this point. You're going to be pairing that with Pillar as well as Syndra Scatter of the week, and it's really scary for this incredibly squishy comp coming up CJ to start up. There's the flank coming in.
Yeah, there are 2 items on Hybrid. Can he use them effectively? Nema's getting a little bit of an engage off, but Nap, that was the worst flank I've seen in a while. Just gets one shot before he can do anything, and CJ can't follow up.
And you say it was Nap's bad flank, but Nema completely flubbing the encore was the real facilitator for Rascal Jester to continue to take that fight there. And then when the Nap really wasn't in a position to support alongside that, Hybrid can't find any damage in tandem with that bullet time. And then, yeah, very well played from Rascal Jester. Just to keep the pressure, they identify one mistake. Okay, doesn't matter. We keep going now. And
one of the things that Rascal Jester do, I think, as good as any team in the LJL, is close their games effectively once they have got these big objectives like the Baron, like Drake Soul, like Elder. And with all of these outer towers already being taken down, only that bot lane tier 2 remaining, it means that this map is wide open for Rascal Jester to establish their vision, and means that those objectives, that Infernal Soul in just over a minute's time, is going to be a hell of a lot easier to secure.
And that's something we haven't talked about a lot this game so far. And I want you to quickly point your eyes towards this top side and see how the pinks have been laid out, because it's specifically targeting some of these more prominent flank spots that we could have seen Nap coming in, because that's really where this team could potentially fall apart, specifically for Recap, who, whilst he has finally picked up a stopwatch, still a very vulnerable member. And if Nap is able to get any initial CC off, that can be prepared so easily with the encore, with some of the follow-up damage that CJ have to get that initial pick to start a successful fight for them, because talked about the solo lanes from Rascal Jester, but that works both ways. These are still incredibly squishy members on Rascal Jester. If they get picked off first, CJ may still find a winning team fight.
And I like what CJ are doing here. They're sort of staying out of sight, out of mind of Rascal Jester towards this bottom side. They recognize that they absolutely have to contest this, Drake. If you are giving over Infernal Soul to Rascal Jester, combined with the gold lead that they already have, this game is GG, and you're already looking at game 2. You've possibly got half an eye on game 2. Anyway, so we'll have to see if they go for the Hail Mary play, or if Rascal Jesters will just shut them down and claim an easy first game victory.
And as soon as Ino gets his shoving in the top side and shows mid where he can get to this fight a little bit earlier, Rascal Jester immediately start walking forwards. They take the aggressive stance. You see traps now coming online.
Oh no.
You're starting to think, where can CJ come through? It's all through that one choke point, and hostile takeover is available.
Yeah, it's just so difficult to play out this fight. You're in a 4v4 where you don't win. Oh my god! Never taken out right at the beginning of the fight. That was disgusting amounts of damage. Infernal Soul for Rascal Jester. And that means that any hope that CGA may have had in this game is going to be dashed. They're going to come back in game 2 to try and claim a victory, but I don't think they're going to be winning this game 1.
Absolutely not. It pairs perfectly with the timer to pick up a Baron, hoping they use this timer effectively. You have 20 seconds on the board. Maybe Ino is fantastic. Ino can look towards this inhibitor at the same time as their team picks up this Baron as well. And this should lead perfectly into, as you mentioned, hopefully a a win on the swifter side, as Rascal Jester have taken a firm grasp of Game 1 of the series.
And this is a team that's all about efficiency. We talked about how efficient Soul could be with his damage numbers in the bot lane. It's been a very efficient game from Rascal Jester. They've only fought when they needed to, and when they have, it has just been ridiculous.
Yeah, and Hachimacha really smart here to make sure he's still in position to stop Kassin from autoing the Drake, to remove the potential for that Dragon takeaway. Even whilst the fight is, even when they're mid-fight, his whole role is, oh, okay, I'm stopping Kassin here. And that's what he knows. Combine that with Ino being on this fantastic flank to split apart the rest of CGA. They get to play it slowly and get that fight very successfully.
It's absolutely beautifully done. Baron secured. 2.5 minutes left on that. Generally, Rascal Jester end in the duration of their first Baron. With that mid lane inhibitor taken out by Ino already, you have to imagine this is just a run it down bot angle. You take the team fight, you take the Nexus, you put yourself 1-0 up in the series. Yeah,
and this is going to come in with that really clean 4-1. The Siege comp is only going to show its head even more now, as Ino in this top side. I think even with 2 members, it's very difficult to contest this champion right now on this Infernal Soul. You see, they're going to have to look for it anyway because they need any pick. Hybrid shows bots top side as well.
Yeah, you bring 3 people to fight the Tryndamere. I think you're probably going to get the kill here, but the real question is how much can Rascal Jester actually get on the other side? The Undying Rage of the Gale forced to buy a little bit more time. Realm Warp to go forward as Eno is still alive. Will cut himself into the base and gets himself taken low. But in the bot lane, Inhibitor go bye-bye.
Yep, big shutdown for CGA, but as you mentioned, Inhibitor in return, which means now you are fighting against 2 inhibs worth of Baron minions. Combine that with no tier 1s or tier 2s remaining on this top side, it means Rascal Jester, especially with this wave slow pushing in, they're just going to keep pressure coming forwards, especially with the strength of Eno. Just having some issues there.
Tank rise, by the way. Just so you're aware, as it's a flash roll from Nema, and he doesn't get anyone with the encore once again. Hostile takeover running forward and will take out the CGA support as the rest of his team is going to fall around him. It's just like every single fight this game. It's been Rascal Jester favored from the start, in the middle, and right at the end. CGA, they're going to need to take a long, hard look at themselves coming through for game 2 because, honestly, this was just so clean from RJ.
Yeah, and RJ as well. Adaptability in draft, I think, was key here. They had a couple old picks coming back in, as well as a brand new pick from Recap. They played through it oh so well, and I think CJ were, as you mentioned, left on the back foot there. They really didn't know what to look towards with a lack of CC combined with Kassin on what we thought would be one of